Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into a world you'd rather avoid. Imagine waking up barefoot on uneven, rocky soil, the sun just peeking over tangled trees, and your stomach already grumbling because, surprise, there's no breakfast waiting for you. No cereal, no coffee, no 5 more minutes snooze button. You're smack in the middle of the Stone Age, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments, because, well, it's always more fun to know who's joining the survival party from where. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to a world that's completely alien, though you'd think it should feel natural. It's just earth, sky, trees, right? Except it's not. There's no asphalt beneath your feet, no gentle hum of city life, no distant car honks to remind you this is the 21st century. Instead, you're surrounded by the wild. A chaotic tangle of bushes, towering trees, the distant hoot of a bird, maybe a rustle that sets your nerves on edge. Your feet touch cold, uneven dirt, and a sharp stab of stray rock presses into your soul, instantly waking you more than any alarm clock ever could. The morning chill clings to your skin. Yes, that skin, which right now feels exposed and fragile. There's no soft cotton shirt hugging you, no insulated jacket to trap warmth. The Stone Age isn't the romanticized image of humans wrapped in perfect, fluffy animal skins. Historians still argue whether early humans even had sewn clothing or just crudely draped hides that barely protected them. Either way, you feel the cold seep in, and it's already a warning sign that comfort isn't coming anytime soon. You shuffle forward, try to get a sense of direction. There's no map, no compass app, no GPS signal here, just a vague instinct that says, maybe follow the sunlight. But sunlight filters through thick branches, casting dancing shadows, and your eyes dart nervously at every movement. A sudden snap of a twig, and your heart jumps into your throat. Survival here is a game of constant alertness. The ancestors who made it this far had senses sharp enough to detect a snake coiling nearby or a predator's soft footfall, but you're still figuring out how to trust your own instincts. By the way, speaking of senses, your nose twitches. There's this odd mix of earthy smells, the dampness of wet leaves, the sharp tang of wildflowers, and something less pleasant, like a distant musk that could be an animal or worse, another human marking territory. The Stone Age wasn't a perfume commercial. People and animals alike shared the same scent bouquet, which, frankly, wasn't fresh laundry. Imagine smelling that every single day. Yikes. Now, hunger begins gnawing. Not the mild, I could eat hunger you feel before lunch, but a desperate, empty ache that settles deep in your gut. Food doesn't just appear on a stone slab. It has to be found, gathered, or hunted. And you're neither prepared nor particularly good at any of that. You try to remember something from documentaries or your high school history classes. Did early humans eat berries? Yes. Roots? Probably. But which ones? Some plants are edible. Others will turn your insides into a toxic mess. Historians still argue whether early humans had reliable knowledge of plants early on or learned mostly through painful trial and error. Your hands are raw, unfamiliar with the demands of this time. The very act of picking up a stick to defend yourself or to poke into a bush feels foreign. You wonder how long before you accidentally injure yourself with a rock or a sharp branch. Pretty soon, you guess, the sky brightens, and with it comes the stark realization. The day ahead is going to be relentless. There's no clock ticking down to lunch or quitting time. Your survival depends on every shaky step, every decision to stay or run, hide or fight. Oh, and just so, despite your best efforts to stay calm, your heart is racing like you've just finished a 5K race. Except you haven't moved much yet. Stress hormones are firing up your body's primitive alarm system. a neat trick inherited from your ancestors, ensuring you're ready to fight or flee. Only problem is, neither option looks particularly promising right now. Welcome to the Stone Age. You're not just waking up, you're waking up to a whole new definition of struggle. You barely have time to register the rough dirt underfoot before your stomach rumbles louder, reminding you that breakfast isn't coming on a silver platter. In fact, breakfast here is a messy, brutal ordeal that usually involves a whole lot of sprinting, scrambling, and, let's be honest, probably a fair bit of crying inside. Foraging isn't the peaceful nature walk you might imagine. Instead, it's a high-stakes gamble where every berry could be poisonous, every bush could hide stinging insects, and every rustle in the undergrowth might mean you're about to become someone else's lunch. You're now forced to learn a harsh truth. Nature doesn't hand out food on demand, and patience could be fatal. You start by cautiously moving toward a patch of wild berries, thinking, hey, these look safe enough. Except, you forgot to check if those berries are edible. Some wild berries are like sweet little death traps. Remember that time you read about how deadly nightshade looks like innocent berries? Well, historians still argue whether early humans had a precise enough botanical knowledge to avoid these hazards or if they relied more on trial and error. And yes, that often meant death. So, every bite is a gamble. As you lean in, you disturb a beehive nestled inside a hollow tree nearby. Suddenly, a buzzing cloud surrounds you, and you're swatting frantically while trying not to breathe through your mouth. The stings are sharp and relentless, and your face swells up like a balloon. It's safe to say your morning just took a turn for the worse. You stumble away from the hive, eyes watering, throat tight from the stress. But wait, there's no time to wallow. The sun is climbing higher, and dehydration is setting in. You scan for water, but in the Stone Age, clean water sources are rare treasures hidden behind layers of risk. Streams might look fresh, but drinking from them without boiling or filtering means swallowing parasites you didn't even know existed. Protozoa, worms, bacteria, you name it. This is where you realize that the survival of the fittest isn't just about muscle or smarts, but also about who can stomach the nastiest cocktails nature throws at them. Your mouth is dry, and your tongue feels like sandpaper. You spot a small, muddy creek and kneel to scoop water with your hands. As you drink, you try not to think about the microscopic menagerie hitching a ride down your throat. You cough, tasting something off, probably a hint of algae or dirt, and grimace. Drinking means risking a nasty stomach infection, but not drinking is death's faster route. Historians still argue about when early humans mastered water purification, but whatever the answer, it clearly came after many stomach-churning failures. As your belly protests and your energy dips, you stumble deeper into the forest, eyes peeled for anything edible. Roots poke through the soil like hidden tripwires, and leaves brush your skin, reminding you of all the insects you're probably brushing off, none of which are remotely interested in being your breakfast. Suddenly, a sharp pain shoots through your gut, a warning that you ate something questionable earlier. Maybe that berry, or the water. Your body rebels with a fierce bout of diarrhea, which in modern life might just mean an awkward day at the office, but here, it's a serious, potentially fatal setback. Losing fluids and strength is quick in this environment. You clutch a tree and lean over, trying to calm your spasms. Welcome to digestive distress, Stone Age style. On top of all that, your energy is draining. You remember that early humans had to hunt and gather for hours every single day. There was no takeout or delivery. The very concept of a break sounds like a luxury afforded only to the lucky. You're supposed to keep going, keep moving, keep searching. And then there's the buzzkill of modern life you never anticipated. The constant swarm of insects. Mosquitoes, flies, and gnats dive bomb your face, drawn by your warm, sweat-salty skin. Some carry diseases that no Stone Age immune system can completely handle. You slap at your arms, cursing your luck, wondering how early humans managed to avoid scratching themselves raw or of getting infected. The sun is getting hotter, and you realize your bare arms are blistering. Not from fire, but from relentless UV rays that no sunscreen will ever protect you from. Yes, that's right. Crocodile dung sunscreen might sound like a joke, or a fringe tidbit to gross out your friends. But ancient humans really did use strange, natural substances to protect their skin, though how effective those were is still debated by historians. Now let's talk about one of the biggest surprises for you, the energy cost of just surviving. When you go for a walk today, you might think about your playlist or what's for lunch. But back then, every step you took was a calculation. Each calorie burned had to be replenished, or you'd slowly weaken and fail. Scientists estimate that early hunter-gatherers expended significantly more energy daily just to find food and water than modern humans do. There was no Uber Eats, there was no grocery store. You couldn't just grab a snack or open the fridge. You try to pick some roots you think might be edible, digging clumsily with your hands. But nature is sneaky. Some roots are loaded with toxins that require complex preparation to be safe to eat, something you don't know how to do. Without that knowledge, you're back to playing food roulette. Is this root going to nourish you or send you spiraling into sickness? Historians still debate how much trial and error was involved before early humans learned to detoxify certain plants. As you fumble, you hear a sudden rustle nearby and freeze. A small group of insects swarms around a dead log, and you spot a juicy grub crawling among the wood chips. Eating insects sounds gross, but remember, this was a crucial source of protein for early humans. Entomophagy, eating bugs, is still common in many cultures today and was likely a stone-cold survival tactic. You eye the grub, debating whether to try it. Hunger usually wins these arguments. You reluctantly pop the bug into your mouth. It's crunchy and surprisingly earthy, with a texture you don't quite love, but can tolerate. Protein delivered. You pat yourself on the back, a small victory. But then, a sharp jab on your ankle brings your attention to a biting insect that somehow found its way into your skin. It itches like crazy, and scratching risks infection. Your mind drifts to the possibility of malaria or other vector-borne diseases that were common back then and often fatal. Modern medicine didn't exist to rescue you, and your immune system was still a work in progress. Some ancient human populations developed genetic traits like sickle cell that offered partial protection, but that's a story for another time. Your head pounds, your breath shortens, dehydration, infection, and exhaustion are colluding. Yet, you push onward because the alternative, staying put, is just as deadly. Your body wants a rest, but your survival instincts demand movement. The forest thickens, and you find a fallen branch shaped like a spear. Holding it feels promising until you realize you have no idea how to sharpen it or use it properly. Early humans were expert toolmakers, but those skills took years to perfect. Your amateur spear probably won't catch dinner. It might just get stuck in a tree. Suddenly, you hear a loud crack from deeper in the woods. Your heart races. Predators lurk here. Wolves, saber-toothed cats, and other beasts you don't want to meet face to face. Without weapons or shelter, you're just a slow meal waiting to happen. The reality sinks in hard. Hunting isn't just about catching prey. It's also about not becoming prey. By late morning, your stomach is growling louder than before, your energy is sapped, and your skin is slick with sweat and grime. You haven't eaten a real meal, haven't had a proper drink, and your body is already betraying you with aches and sharp pains. Welcome to your Stone Age morning. It's messy, painful, and unforgiving, and the day is far from over. The relentless sun climbs higher, turning the dense forest into a furnace, and you quickly realize that your makeshift shelter won't hold much comfort. Sweat drips down your brow and stings your eyes as you press forward, guided only by a vague instinct to keep moving. Your muscles ache with every step, but standing still feels like surrender, a luxury you can't afford. You're beginning to understand that survival in the Stone Age was less about strength alone and more about endurance, adaptability, and a keen sense of your environment. Every rustle, every scent, every shadow could be a clue or a warning. Historians still debate how early humans balanced the mental and physical demands of such a harsh existence. But it's clear they were relentless. As you navigate the forest, your senses sharpen involuntarily. You catch the faint scent of smoke on the wind, perhaps a distant campfire. Fire was one of humanity's greatest discoveries, a game changer that offered warmth, protection, and a way to cook food. Yet, controlling fire wasn't as simple as flipping a lighter. It took years of experimentation, and many generations learned through painful trial and error. Imagine trying to start a fire without matches, just a couple of stones and dry sticks, while your hands tremble from exhaustion and your mind races with worry. The thought brings a fleeting sense of hope, but also frustration. Fire would mean cooked food, which is easier to digest and safer to eat. Cooking also helped unlock more nutrient from plants and meat, but until you master the skill, raw food means risking parasites and tough digestion. Your stomach growls again, louder this time, an urgent reminder that the day won't wait for you to figure it all out. Hunger clouds your thoughts, making it harder to focus. You try to remember any lessons about edible plants or animal behavior, but under pressure, memories become foggy. Suddenly, you notice something unusual, a glint near the forest floor. Kneeling, you discover a crude stone tool, probably left by another early human. It's jagged, unrefined, but functional. This small find feels like a treasure, proof that others have survived here before you, and maybe left clues for the unwary. But wielding the tool is awkward. You fumble with it, imagining how early humans learned to make and use such implement effectively. Archaeologists have found evidence that tool-making evolved gradually over hundreds of thousands of years, with early forms being simple flakes and choppers. Using tools was an essential skill that marked the transition from passive scavenger to active hunter-gatherer. You wonder how long it would take for you to develop even basic proficiency, probably much longer than your dwindling energy reserves allow. As you stand, a sudden rustling nearby makes your heart leap. A small herd of deer bursts through the trees, alert and skittish. They move quickly, disappearing before you can react. The gap between you and a successful hunt feels insurmountable. You don't have a weapon, you don't know how to track properly, and your muscles are already sore from the morning's ordeal. Hunters in the Stone Age relied heavily on patience, teamwork, and experience, skills you don't have. There's also debate among scholars about when humans became proficient hunters and whether scavenging or hunting came first as primary food sources. Whatever the case, watching prey flee only adds to your frustration and hunger. The afternoon heat presses down harder, and dehydration tightens its grip. Your lips crack, your throat burns, and each breath feels heavy. You're starting to experience the early signs of heat exhaustion, dizziness, fatigue, and confusion. Without shade or cool water, your body is fighting a losing battle. You find a small cave entrance and crawl inside, seeking refuge. The darkness is a relief, the cool rock surfaces soothing your overheated skin. But the cave is not entirely safe. Tiny scuttling sounds warn you that you've disturbed a colony of spiders or insects. You shiver, recalling stories of ancient humans who likely encountered venomous creatures and learned to coexist or avoid them. Your mind drifts to the social aspect of survival. Early humans weren't lone wolves. They lived in groups that shared knowledge, resources, and protection. Being alone here puts you at a severe disadvantage. Without companions, your chances of spotting danger, finding food, or sharing warmth plummet. You think about the communal fire pits, the shared meals, the protection against predators that came with numbers. But right now, you're utterly alone, an outsider in a hostile world. As the sun begins to dip lower, your body is weak, your stomach empty, and your spirits low. The forest seems to close in around you, the shadows stretching like dark fingers ready to engulf your trembling form. Tonight promises to be even tougher than the day. As twilight thickens, the forest sounds shift. The chirping of insects gives way to low growls and distant howls. The shadows lengthen, twisting the familiar landscape into something ominous and alien. You realize with a jolt that nightfall in the Stone Age wasn't just an end to the day. It was the start of a whole new set of dangers. In the dimming light, your eyes struggle to adjust. Without the glow of artificial lighting, darkness becomes absolute. Your modern brain protests. How do you navigate and survive when your best sense is blindfolded by night? Early humans developed remarkable night vision compared to modern folks, thanks to generations adapting to living under the stars. But still, the dark is a precarious place. You shuffle toward what you hope is a safe spot to rest, clutching your crude stone tool like a lifeline. Finding shelter at night was a survival skill hammered home over millennia. Some sought caves, others built rudimentary huts from branches and leaves. Historians still argue how early humans transitioned from purely natural shelters to constructed ones, and whether firelight was ever used strategically to keep predators away. You find a cluster of thick bushes dense enough to offer some concealment. Carefully, you settle down, muscles trembling from exhaustion. Your stomach churns with hunger and dehydration, and every breath tastes dry and gritty. The night air is cooler, but that offers little comfort when your body aches and your mind races with anxiety. Suddenly, a rustle nearby causes your heart to skip. You freeze, listening intently. The forest is alive with nocturnal predators, wolves, large cats, and other creatures hungry and active under the cover of darkness. You feel utterly exposed, a lone figure in an ancient wilderness where being alone often meant death. To your left, the glowing eyes of small predator catch the faint moonlight, reflecting like eerie beacons. You hold your breath, muscles coiled to run or fight if needed. Your makeshift spear feels useless against such creatures. It's a stark reminder of how vulnerable early humans could be without weapons. Weapons that themselves took time and skill to craft effectively. Your thoughts drift to the discovery of fire and its role in nighttime safety. Anthropologists agree that mastering fire was a pivotal step in human evolution, extending waking hours, providing warmth, and warding off predators. But fire wasn't easily kept alive. It demanded constant attention and resources. You realize that your ancestors spent as much time maintaining their fire as hunting and gathering. Your skin prickles as a cold breeze cuts through the trees, carrying scents you don't recognize but instinctively understand to be dangerous. You pull your arms around yourself, wishing for a blanket or the safety of others. But solitude is your reality. As you lie there, thoughts swirl in your head. How did early humans endure such nights? How did they build trust within their groups, share the burden of watching for danger, and comfort one another in the dark? The social bonds they formed were as vital as their physical skills, yet you're isolated, a reminder that survival wasn't guaranteed by strength alone. Then, an unexpected sound breaks the tension, a distant rhythmic drumming. You wonder if it's the echo of another tribe's campfire or a natural phenomenon. Drumming and music may have been early ways to communicate, build community, and even scare away predators. Historians debate when exactly humans began using sound and rhythm as tools for social cohesion. But it's clear these early cultural practices helped shape human survival. Your eyelids grow heavy, but sleep seems dangerous when you're so vulnerable. Yet your body demands rest, even as your mind races with fears and uncertainties. Eventually, exhaustion wins, and you drift into a restless sleep, ears straining for the slightest sound. The night is long, filled with dreams of hunger, danger, and the hope that dawn will bring relief. Because it has to. By the time the first light of dawn brushes the treetops, your body is stiff and your mind is foggy, but somehow you're still here. You wake with a start, muscles aching from the restless night. Your eyes blink against the early sun filtering through leaves. And for a moment, you almost forget where you are, until the gnawing hunger and parched throat remind you that survival is far from guaranteed. Mornings in the Stone Age don't come with coffee, breakfast cereals, or even clean water. Instead, you're faced with the brutal reality of starting over every single day, searching for food, finding water, and evading predators while your body protests with exhaustion. You gingerly stand, testing your limbs. Every movement is a reminder of how much energy survival demands. Even getting up requires willpower, and the simplest task, like walking, feels like a marathon. Historians estimate that early humans expended up to twice the energy daily compared to a modern office worker, because every bite and sip had to be earned. The forest awakens with a chorus of birdsong, but you barely register it. Your senses are honed not to enjoy the symphony, but to detect danger, food, or water. You scan the area for edible plants, roots, or insects, remembering the lessons, some learned painfully, about what is safe and what can kill you. The morning light reveals tiny, sparkling dewdrops on leaves and grass, potential water sources, but not always reliable. Drinking from such sources might be safer than muddy streams, but in the Stone Age, clean water was a precious commodity. You crouch and lap at dew, savoring its coolness while being mindful not to consume any tiny creatures or dirt mixed in. Your stomach grumbles louder, reminding you that dew won't be enough. You recall the earlier taste of raw grubs and the protein boost they provided, so you set out to find more. Insects were an important, sometimes overlooked, part of early human diets. They provided high-quality protein, fats, and essential nutrients. Across cultures, entomophagy persists, a testament to its nutritional value. You scan the forest floor carefully, spotting ants, termites, and beetles crawling in the soil and underbark. Collecting them takes patience, but you manage to scoop several into your hands. Eating bugs might gross you out today, but in the Stone Age, they were survival food, a reliable protein source when larger prey was scarce or too dangerous to hunt. Chewing on crunchy insects, you notice your hands trembling slightly from fatigue and hunger. Your body is still battling dehydration and energy loss. You consider your options. Try to hunt, keep foraging, or find a water source. Hunting without tools feels impossible. You have that crude stone tool from yesterday, but wielding it is awkward, and your aim is unpracticed. The thought of tracking and catching swift deer or wild boar seems laughably out of reach. Historians still debate exactly when humans became efficient hunters versus scavengers, but the transition was a process, not an overnight leap. The forest, while beautiful, hides countless dangers. Poisonous plants lurk alongside edible ones, and sometimes the difference is a single leaf or berry. Mistakes could be deadly. You think back to the trial and error process early humans underwent to build botanical knowledge. Some scholars believe that knowledge was passed down orally through generations, forming the roots of early culture and education. You notice a patch of wild tubers poking through the soil, potential food if you can dig them up. You dig with your hands and a sharpened stick you found, scraping away dirt carefully. Early humans relied heavily on roots and tubers for sustenance, but many needed processing, like roasting or soaking, to remove toxins. You don't have those skills or time, so you're taking risks. The tubers look edible enough, so you bite into one. The texture is tough, fibrous, and mildly bitter. Your teeth ache a little, but hunger pushes you forward. Every bite is a gamble. Could this root cause digestive issues or worse? Historians still argue over how long it took humans to develop safe preparation techniques for various plants. But the trial and error learning curve was undoubtedly steep. Mid-morning sun climbs and sweat trickles down your back, mixing with dirt and grime. The insects return, buzzing relentlessly, attracted to your sweat and exposed skin. Mosquitoes, flies, and gnats dive bomb your face and neck, forcing you to swat and blink constantly. Some carry diseases, malaria, dengue, or other illnesses that early humans struggled against without medicine. Your skin itches, and scratching risks infection. It's a cruel cycle. The very environment you depend on for food also threatens your health. Your modern mind rebels, wondering how anyone could survive under such conditions. You press on, desperation fueling your steps. Your eyes catch a glint by a nearby stream, and you make your way there cautiously. The water looks clearer than yesterday, but you remember the risk of parasites and bacteria. Early humans likely had ways to purify water, like boiling or using certain plants, but those methods required fire and knowledge. Without fire, you face the danger of drinking contaminated water. You kneel by the stream, cupping your hands to drink. The water is cold and refreshing, but carries a faint earthy taste. You swallow quickly, hoping it won't upset your already fragile stomach. Your energy is dipping fast, and you know you need to find more substantial food soon. Your stomach aches, but your body feels numb from hunger and exhaustion. Suddenly, a noise catches your attention, a rustling in the bushes. You freeze, heart pounding. Could it be a predator? A rival human? Your mind races with worst-case scenarios. Out steps a wild boar, snuffling and rooting in the dirt. You watch, mesmerized and terrified. Boars are tough, aggressive animals with sharp tusks. Hunting one without weapons or experience is near impossible and dangerous. The boar doesn't seem to notice you, so you stay perfectly still, hoping to avoid detection. You realize early humans likely used a combination of stealth, tools, and teamwork to hunt such creatures. Without a group, your odds plummet. The boar moves on, and you exhale slowly, relief washing over you. But your hunger remains, gnawing relentlessly. You consider a different strategy, scavenging. Early humans sometimes relied on scavenging carcasses left by larger predators, picking at leftover meat and marrow. It was risky, though, since it could bring you face to face with lions or hyenas guarding their kill. Your body protests as you push forward, and the day's ordeal starts to feel endless. You stumble over roots, your feet sore and blistered. You think about your modern life again, the ease of opening a fridge or ordering a meal, and sheer contrast makes you ache inside. Survival in the Stone Age demands constant movement, vigilance, and the willingness to endure pain and uncertainty. You are hungry, exhausted, and alone, but the day presses on. At last, late afternoon sun softens, and you find a small berry bush. The berries look ripe and juicy. Your heart leaps. You pick handfuls, popping them into your mouth. The sweet burst of flavor is a small victory, but you remain wary. Some berries, like the deadly nightshade you thought about yesterday, are poisonous. You chew slowly, tasting bitterness and sweetness, trying to gauge whether they're safe. Historians still debate how early humans distinguished safe plants from toxic ones. Some argue that observing animals helped, others that trial and error was painful but necessary. Your stomach rumbles, but your hope flickers anew. The day winds down, your body aching from hunger, thirst, and fatigue. You find a spot to rest, eyes scanning for predators as night approaches once more. Tomorrow promises more struggle, but for now, you savor the small victories, the berries, the water, the fact that you've lasted another day. Because in the Stone Age, every day survived was a triumph. The evening's cool breeze brushes your skin, offering a brief respite from the sun's relentless blaze. Your body feels like it's been run through a grinder, muscles stiff, joints aching, and every movement accompanied by a dull, persistent throb. Yet, even as exhaustion tugs at you, the harsh truth sinks in. You still have to find a way to survive tonight. Nightfall in the Stone Age wasn't a simple pause button like it often is today. There are no street lamps or night lights to soften the darkness, no warm homes to retreat to, no cozy beds with soft blankets. Instead, the world outside grew unfamiliar and dangerous. The sounds, scents, and shadows that once seemed innocuous in daylight morphed into potential threats lurking just beyond your vision. You scan the area, your eyes adjusting slowly as the forest shapes dissolve into a silhouette of branches and leaves. The crackle of twigs underfoot from small creatures, rodents, insects, perhaps even snakes, raises your awareness. In this primal world, every sound could mean a predator on the hunt or an opportunity for food. You remind yourself to breathe steadily, to stay calm despite the pounding of your heart. Locating a safe shelter becomes your priority. The memory of the previous night's cave lingers, a cold, dark refuge, but not without risks, spiders, snakes, or even worse. You decide to try constructing a makeshift shelter this time, using fallen branches, leaves, and whatever you can find nearby. It's crude work, your hands blistering as you wrestle with stiff twigs and heavy branches, but the need to protect yourself outweighs discomfort. Shelter building was a hallmark of human ingenuity during the Stone Age. Archaeological evidence shows early humans transitioning from natural shelters like caves to constructed dwellings, a pivotal step in their ability to control their environment. Yet historians still argue how sophisticated these early shelters were and how much time it took communities to perfect these skills. What you're building now feels primitive and fragile, a humble reminder of the long journey humanity has taken. As you work, your mind drifts to the social structures of early humans. Shelter building was often a group effort, a collaborative task that helped bind communities together. The idea of family, tribe, or band working in unison to protect each other, share resources, and pass knowledge feels like a luxury you sorely miss. You shiver, not just from the evening chill, but from the loneliness that creeps in. Finally, your shelter stands, a simple lean-to against a tree, covered with leaves for camouflage. It won't stop a determined predator, but it offers some semblance of safety. Next comes fire. You dig through your memories of how early humans discovered and mastered fire. Through sparks from flint stones, friction from rubbing sticks together, or by capturing natural lightning strikes. You fumble with a few stones you gathered, striking them clumsily. Sparks fly, but none catch. Your fingers bleed, and frustration mounts. Fire starting was a game changer in human history, providing warmth, protection, cooked food, and extended hours of activity. Yet, it was a skill that took practice, patience, and knowledge, qualities you're sorely lacking right now. You pause to catch your breath, the weight of the day settling heavily on your shoulders. The sun has dipped below the horizon, and the forest is blanketed in darkness. You're cold, hungry, and vulnerable. Suddenly, you hear a low growl nearby. Your heart hammers against your ribs as you freeze. The growl grows louder, closer. You strain your eyes, try to locate the source. It could be a wolf or a large feline, both formidable predators that early humans had to contend with regularly. Instinct tells you to stay still and quiet. Your makeshift spear feels inadequate, a flimsy defense against razor-sharp claws and teeth. Your mind races with thoughts of the dangers that lurk unseen. It's easy to romanticize the Stone Age from a safe distance, but this moment slams you into the brutal reality. The growling fades slowly, and you exhale in relief. But the adrenaline surge leaves your muscles tense and your heart still racing. You wrap yourself in leaves for warmth and huddle inside your shelter, eyes wide open, ears attuned to every sound. Sleep is elusive. Your body aches for rest, but the forest doesn't offer peace. You remind yourself that early humans developed ways to take turns keeping watch, sharing the burden of guarding the group. Tonight, you are alone, and that solitude is a heavy burden. As hours pass, your mind drifts into memories and dreams. Images of modern comforts, of warm beds and prepared meals, a stark contrast to your current predicament. You imagine your ancestors huddled around campfires, sharing stories, passing down wisdom. That communal bond was as essential to survival as food and shelter. Eventually, exhaustion claims you, dragging you into a fitful sleep peppered with vivid dreams of hunts, dangers, and the endless struggle to endure. You awaken at the first hint of dawn, soaked with sweat, muscles screaming, but somehow still alive. Because surviving the night was only the beginning. The dawn light spills through the trees, painting everything in soft gold, but you hardly notice its beauty. Your body aches as if you've been through a war, joints stiff and sore, muscles burning from yesterday's exertions and last night's restless sleep. You remind yourself, this is survival. You are in a world where comfort is a distant dream, and every breath you take is a fragile victory against a relentless wilderness. You rise slowly, wincing as every movement pulls at tired muscles. Hunger gnaws relentlessly, and your throat is raw from the dusty air. The air is cool and crisp in the morning, but you're anything but refreshed. Instead, your mind sharpens with the urgency of the day ahead, finding food, water, and shelter again before night falls. Walking feels precarious. Your feet are sore and bruised, no doubt blistered from wandering barefoot or in primitive footwear that offers little protection. Every step risks injury, and even a small cut could fester without modern medicine. Remember that simple wound infection was a silent killer in the Stone Age, one that even the toughest warriors feared. Historians debate how early humans treated such injuries, whether they used herbal remedies, animal fats, or simply endured until natural healing kicked in. The forest greets you with a symphony of morning sounds. Birds calling, leaves rustling, insects buzzing. But these aren't merely background noises. Each sound carries information. Prey moving, predators hunting, or weather shifting. Your senses are hyper-alert, scanning for any sign of danger or opportunity. Today, you decide to shift tactics. Yesterday's trial and error approach to finding food and water taught you the value of planning and caution. You pick a direction based on the sun's position, aiming toward a river you spotted faintly from the hill the day before. Water, is essential not only to quench thirst, but also to increase your chances of spotting animals that come to drink. Potential prey if you can muster the courage and skill to hunt. Walking toward the river, you note the changes in the landscape. The forest thins, replaced by patches of tall grass and scattered trees. Your footsteps stir small creatures. Lizards dart away, birds scatter, and insects take flight. The variety of life is both fascinating and intimidating. Each animal fits into a complex web of survival, just like you. Reaching the riverbank, you crouch to drink. The water is cooler and clearer here, but you still worry about parasites. You dip your hands and splash your face, grateful for the refreshment. Around you, evidence of animal activity is everywhere. Tracks in the mud, broken branches, and scat. Early humans were keen trackers, reading these signs like a map. Their survival depended on understanding animal behavior, movement patterns, and seasonal changes. You feel a pang of envy for their knowledge, honed over countless generations. Your instincts are sharp, but your modern mind struggles to keep pace with this raw, immediate reality. While drinking, you spot movement in the distance, a group of deer grazing near the water's edge. Your heart quickens. Hunting them would be a challenge beyond your current skill set, especially alone and without proper tools. Yet, hunger fuels your desire. You think about hunting techniques of the Stone Age, using spears, traps, or coordinated group strategies. Some groups relied heavily on persistence hunting, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Others crafted sophisticated weapons from bone, wood, and stone. Historians still argue over when exactly early humans mastered these techniques and how much cooperation was involved. Without weapons or allies, your options are limited. Instead, you focus on foraging, scanning the riverbank for edible plants, nuts, or berries. You find a cluster of wild, nuts partially hidden under leaves, and collect them carefully, mindful of poisonous lookalikes. Foraging required deep botanical knowledge, another skill that was passed down orally and through practice. Early humans developed an intimate relationship with their environment, learning which plants healed wounds, which provided nutrition, and which were deadly. Your stomach rumbles again as you nibble on the nuts, appreciating the brief burst of energy. But the landscape shifts suddenly, and dark clouds roll overhead, threatening rain. The Stone Age weather was as unpredictable as it was harsh. A sudden downpour could wash away food supplies, soak your shelter, or force you to seek refuge in dangerous terrain. You scramble to gather your belongings, seeking higher ground to avoid potential flooding. Your shelter, fragile and temporary, offers little protection from the elements. You realize that early humans faced constant threats not just from predators, but also from the natural world itself. As the first drops fall, you hunker down beneath a large tree, feeling the cold sting of rain soak through your skin. Your body shivers uncontrollably, and you curse your lack of fire or proper clothing. The wetness seeps deep, and your morale dips. You recall that early humans used animal hides, woven grasses, or bark strips to protect themselves from rain and cold. The development of clothing was a game changer, enabling survival in diverse climates. Yet historians debate when true tailored clothing appeared versus simple draping. The rain intensifies, and you shiver, wondering how long you can endure the cold without shelter. Your teeth chatter uncontrollably, and you rub your arms for warmth. Despite the misery, a strange sense of connection to this primal world begins to settle in. The rhythm of rain on leaves, the scent of wet earth, and the raw exposure to nature's forces awaken a part of you long buried by modern conveniences. Eventually, the rain slows, leaving behind a fresh, earthy scent. Puddles form, and the forest seems reborn, vibrant with renewed life. You take this as a sign to keep moving, to press on despite hardship. As the day wanes, your thoughts turn to the community aspect of Stone Age survival. The idea of sharing warmth, food, and watchfulness within a group feels like a distant dream in your solitary struggle. Anthropologists agree that social bonds were crucial for human survival, enabling cooperation in hunting, childcare, and knowledge transfer. Without those bonds, you realize how raw and lonely survival truly is. You find a sheltered spot near a large rock outcrop and settle down as twilight descends. Your body is weary, but your mind refuses to rest fully, always alert for sounds of predators or other dangers. As stars prick the night sky, you stare upward, feeling simultaneously insignificant and part of something vast. You remember the earlier nights of vulnerability and wonder if your ancestors felt the same awe and fear under these ancient skies. Sleep finally claims you, a light and restless drift into dreams where safety, food, and companionship flicker like elusive shadows. Tomorrow is another day of struggle, another day where survival is a test of wit, endurance, and sheer will. And you wonder if you have what it takes. The first light of dawn seeps through the canopy again, but this time you awaken not just to the familiar ache in your muscles, but also to the sharp pang of realization. You are utterly alone. No tribe, no kin, no one to share the burden or celebrate the small victories. The Stone Age world was as much about community as it was about survival, and you feel the full weight of isolation pressing down on your spirit. Your body is covered in grime and sweat, clothing ragged and ineffective against the chill morning air. As you stretch, your joints protest, creaking with every movement. You remind yourself that early humans, despite their hardiness, were not immune to injury and illness. A sprained ankle, an infected wound, or a severe cold could be deadly in their harsh environment. Historians still debate the extent to which early humans cared for their injured and ill, but it's clear that social cooperation played a key role in their resilience. You rise and begin a slow trek through the forest, eyes scanning for signs of edible plants or fresh water. Hunger gnaws at your belly, and your throat feels dry and rough. You recall that water sources were often communal hubs for ancient tribes, places where social bonds were strengthened and survival strategies exchanged. Today, yours is a solitary pilgrimage. The undergrowth is thick and tangled, and every step you take risks stirring unseen dangers. You hear the distant rustle of larger animals, perhaps a boar or even a predator. Your heart races, muscles tense for flight or fight, but you press on, reminded that hesitation can be just as fatal as recklessness. Your gaze falls on a cluster of berries hanging low from a bush. They look promising, but you hesitate. Not all berries are safe. Some can cause severe illness or even death. This is where knowledge passed down through generations was life-saving. You pick a small sample, nibbling cautiously, and wait for any adverse reaction. The taste is tart but not unpleasant, and your body tolerates it, offering a rare treat in this bleak landscape. You gather more cautiously, knowing that overconsumption could backfire. It's a delicate balance between desperation and prudence, one that early humans mastered through experience and communal wisdom. As you move, the forest suddenly opens to reveal an ancient rock formation, weathered by time and cloaked in moss. It strikes you as a potential shelter, a natural fortress offering protection from rain, wind, and predators. You approach carefully, inspecting the cave-like crevices for signs of other inhabitants. There's a faint scent of smoke, suggesting recent human presence. Your mind reels at the thought of stumbling upon another tribe, or worse, hostile strangers. Prehistoric groups often competed fiercely over territory and resources. Historians still argue about the nature of these interactions, whether early humans were primarily cooperative or frequently in conflict. You decide to approach cautiously, calling out softly but receiving no response. The silence is unsettling. You settle near the entrance, using the rock's shadow as cover while you rest. The cool stone soothes your weary back, and for a moment, you allow yourself to imagine the warmth of a fire crackling nearby. Fire, the ultimate survival tool. It provided not only heat and light, but also a way to cook food, ward off predators, and forge social bonds. You recall your previous struggles with starting a fire and wonder how early humans refined their techniques to such proficiency. As you sit, you notice carvings etched into the rock, simple symbols, or perhaps early forms of communication. It fascinates you how even then, humans express themselves through art and symbolism. Some scholars argue these markings represented early spiritual beliefs or territorial claims, but their true meaning remains a mystery. Night approaches again, and the forest sounds shift from vibrant day chorus to eerie night calls. You prepare your shelter beside the rock formation, using fallen branches and leaves to create a barrier against the cold. The temperature drops quickly, and you pull whatever makeshift covering you have tighter around your body. Your thoughts drift to the social aspect of Stone Age life, how sharing warmth, stories, and watch duties fostered trust and survival. Without that, you feel raw and exposed. Suddenly, a distant howl pierces the night air. Your heart leaps, adrenaline surging as primal fear floods your senses. You clutch your spear like stick tighter, muscles coiled and ready. The howl echoes again, answered by others, revealing the presence of a pack. Wolves, efficient predators that hunted in groups, able to take down prey much larger than themselves. Early humans both feared and respected these creatures, sometimes competing for territory or food. You remember reading that some researchers believe early humans may have formed symbiotic relationships with wolves, eventually leading to domesticated dogs. Historians still debate the timing and nature of this bond. For now, the wolves are just another threat, stalking the edges of your fragile world. The night drags on, filled with restless moments and tense listening. Every crackle of leaves or snap of a twig sets your heart racing. You realize that night was the most dangerous time for Stone Age humans, with darkness amplifying every fear and threat. As dawn breaks, you finally sink into a fitful sleep, haunted by the howls and the ever-present struggle to endure. You awake to another day, still wondering if you truly belong in this relentless world, or if it will claim you as so many others before you. Dawn creeps in softly, painting the sky in muted pinks and oranges, but you wake to a new kind of ache, one not just of body but of the spirit. The loneliness of survival has started to gnaw deeper, and the endless uncertainty wears on you. Still, there's no time to dwell. The day demands your attention. You gather your scant belongings and prepare to face the challenges anew. Your body protests as you move, every muscle stiff and sore from days of hardship. The simple act of walking feels like a monumental task, and your feet, cracked and raw, remind you that protective footwear is a luxury you sorely lack. In the Stone Age, footwear varied widely, from simple animal hides tied around the foot to more intricate constructions. Yet historians still debate when the earliest true shoes emerged. For now, your bare feet must endure the rough terrain. Your mind drifts to the social life of early humans. The bonds formed in small bands or tribes weren't just about companionship. They were essential for survival. Sharing food, knowledge, and protection created a safety net that you, alone, sorely miss. The thought of sitting by a communal fire, exchanging stories and advice, seems almost dreamlike. Today's task is finding food that doesn't require hunting, something you're still not ready for alone. You move carefully through the underbrush, eyes scanning for edible plants, roots, or insects. It's a delicate dance, balancing curiosity and caution. Early humans had an intricate understanding of their environment, passed down orally through generations. This knowledge was a matter of life and death, and historians continue to debate how sophisticated these early botanical teachings were. You spot a cluster of mushrooms growing near a fallen log. They look promising, but you hesitate. Some mushrooms can be deadly, and without expertise, the risk is high. You remember reading that ancient humans had some form of trial and error combined with careful observation to distinguish edible fungi, a risky process that cost lives but also ensured survival. Instead, you shift focus to a patch of wild tubers partially buried in the soil. Digging carefully with a sharpened stick, you unearth a few small roots. They're earthy and bitter, but they offer sustenance. The act of foraging, digging into the earth, connects you tangibly to the life cycles of the wild, but also reveals how primitive tools shaped human progress. The earliest known digging sticks date back tens of thousands of years, and their development marked a turning point in dietary diversity. As you chew on the tubers, your stomach rumbles in reluctant approval. Nutrition is scarce, but you remind yourself that early humans survived on what the land provided, adapting seasonally and regionally. The challenge is constant and unyielding. Suddenly, the distant crack of a branch catches your attention. Your heart leaps. You freeze, ears straining. Is it prey or predator? You scan the trees and bushes, but the dense foliage hides all but shadows. Moments later, a wild boar bursts into the clearing, snuffling and rooting around. Your instinct is to hunt, but without proper weapons or allies, it's a fool's errand. The boar is quick and aggressive, and you're painfully aware that early humans often hunted in groups to take down such dangerous animals. Persistence hunting, chasing prey until exhaustion, was common, but it required stamina and teamwork you lack. You watch as the boar disappears into the forest, a mixture of frustration and relief washing over you. Hunger remains, but so does the stark awareness of your limitations. You decide to head back toward your rock shelter, moving cautiously. The forest feels less threatening in daylight, but danger lurks nonetheless. Poisonous snakes, insects, and hidden pitfalls remind you that every step carries risk. Back at your shelter, you take stock of your resources and reflect on the innovation early humans brought to their survival challenges. The development of tools, knives, scrapers, and spear points transformed human capability. Historians debate how quickly these technologies spread and how much cultural exchange influenced their evolution. Your crude spear, fashioned from a sturdy branch, feels inadequate compared to the flint-tipped weapons your ancestors crafted. The realization stings, but also fuels determination. As evening approaches, you gather dry leaves and branches, managing to strike a spark with your flintstones. The fire catches, flickering to life and casting dancing shadows on the rock face. The warmth soothes your chilled bones, and the crackling sound offers a small comfort against the night solitude. You roast a few gathered nuts over the flames, savoring their warmth and flavor. Fire was more than a tool. It was a beacon of human ingenuity and social connection, enabling activities beyond daylight hours and providing a measure of safety. Night falls again, and you lie beside the fire, muscles aching and mind swirling. The howls from distant wolves remind you of your precarious place in this ancient world. Sleep comes slowly, punctuated by dreams of companionship and survival. Tomorrow promises more challenges, but you've learned something vital. Survival is as much about adaptation and knowledge as it is about strength. The sun barely peaks over the horizon when you stir, your body stiff and your mind foggy from another restless night. Each morning in this Stone Age wilderness feels like waking inside a battle zone, with the enemy being not just predators or weather, but your own exhaustion and despair. You force yourself upright, muscles groaning like an old machine, and set out to tackle the day's grueling survival tasks. Your feet hit the earth, the terrain rough and unforgiving beneath your bare soles. Already, tiny cuts and scrapes, your unwelcome badges of honor, remind you that Stone Age survival demands resilience that modern comforts have dulled. The foot injuries alone are a huge threat. Without clean environments and antiseptics, even a minor wound could become fatal. Historians still debate how early humans managed to care for such injuries, but it's clear their survival depended on both physical toughness and communal care. You pause, taking in the fresh morning air, thick with the scent of damp earth and foliage. Birds chirp cautiously, the forest slowly coming to life, but every sound raises your awareness. Here, silence isn't peaceful, it's suspicious. Today, your goal is to learn more about water sources and food availability by following animal tracks, a skill early humans honed with great expertise. Tracking is more than just spotting footprints. It's reading the subtle signs of broken twigs, disturbed soil, and droppings to understand animal behavior. Scholars still debate how early this skill developed and how much it relied on trial, error, and shared knowledge. As you move, your eyes catch fresh prints leading toward a shallow creek. You follow carefully, noting the tracks, deer, wild boar, even something larger, maybe a predator. The proximity to water means these animals come regularly, and this knowledge is precious. Early humans depended on waterholes not just for drinking, but as hunting grounds and social gathering places. Approaching the creek, you crouch low, scanning for movement. The water ripples gently, and you spot fish darting beneath the surface. Catching fish without proper tools or nets feels daunting, But you remember that early humans experimented with simple traps and spears. Some even used natural poisons to stun fish, though historians still argue how widely such techniques were practiced. Your stomach growls loudly, reminding you of your pressing hunger. You scoop up some water, drinking greedily while you consider your options. With patience, you manage to fashion a crude spear from sharp stone and sturdy branch, aiming to try your hand at fishing. Standing still by the creek's edge, you feel the cool water lap against your legs, sending shivers through your exhausted body. The sensation grounds you. Nature is both your enemy and your provider. After several failed attempts, a flash of silver catches your eye, and you thrust. The spear misses, but your determination sharpens. Persistence hunting isn't just for land animals. Early humans adapted techniques for fish and smaller creatures too. Frustrated but undeterred, you shift focus to gathering edible plants along the bank. Roots, tubers, and wild greens. You nibble cautiously, wary of unfamiliar flavors that could betray you with illness. The trial and error learning curve early humans faced in identifying safe foods was steep and often deadly. You find a patch of wild onions, their pungent smell promising a burst of flavor and nutrition. You chew the bulb slowly, savoring the sharp taste and feeling a small victory in your otherwise grueling day. As the sun climbs higher, the forest hums with life, but shadows lengthen, signaling time to seek shelter before nightfall. Your body aches more than ever, a mixture of fatigue and the relentless tension of survival wearing down your defenses. You return to your rock shelter, grateful for its modest protection against the coming dark. Fire again becomes your companion, offering warmth and comfort as you roast the tubers and nuts gathered during the day. Your thoughts drift to early human culture, how fire was more than survival. It was a social anchor. Around the flames, stories, songs, and traditions flourished, forging connections that strengthened the group. Without such bonds, you feel raw and exposed. As darkness deepens, the night chorus begins anew. The distant howls, rustling bushes, and chirping insects create a symphony both beautiful and menacing. You close your eyes, muscles twitching as sleep finally takes hold, but the night remains alive around you. Tomorrow promises more lessons, more pain, and perhaps, just maybe, a glimmer of hope. You awaken to the sharp cry of birds signaling morning, but this time your body protests more fiercely. Each muscle aches, and your face feels scratched from countless brushes with branches and undergrowth. Yet, your mind knows that resting too long could be a death sentence in this unforgiving environment. The relentless demand to find food, water, and shelter presses on you like a stone around your neck. Today, your focus turns to the elusive art of hunting, a skill that separates the truly skilled from the struggling survivors. You clutch your spear, fashioned from sharpened rock tied to a sturdy branch, feeling its rough texture beneath your fingers. Early humans innovated tools like this over millennia, improving effectiveness with flint tips and spear throwers. But your crude weapon feels primitive, and you understand just how precarious your position is. Stealth becomes your companion as you move through the forest, feet barely making a sound against the leaf-littered ground. Tracking prey requires patience and sharp eyes, something our ancestors honed from necessity. You find fresh tracks, likely deer or elk, and cautiously follow them, careful not to break a twig or disturb a leaf. The forest is alive with subtle cues: a snapped branch, a tuft of fur caught on a thorn, the faint rustle of movement in the bushes. You pause often, listening intently. Hunters in the Stone Age developed a near-mystical connection with nature, reading these signs with precision, though historians still argue how early these sophisticated tracking skills appeared. Suddenly, you spot movement ahead, a large boar rooting through the underbrush. Your heart races. This is a dangerous quarry, aggressive and fast. Your mind races through the risks. Hunting alone, with a basic spear, against a powerful animal. Yet hunger pushes you forward. You crouch low, breath steady, and prepare to strike. The boar snorts and twitches, its eyes sharp and alert. You throw your spear, but it misses, embedding in a tree trunk behind the animal. The boar charges, and you leap aside, heart pounding as it passes close. Adrenaline surges, but so does the bitter taste of failure. Hunting was never easy. Early humans often returned empty-handed after long, exhausting chases. Persistence hunting, involving tracking prey over miles until exhaustion, required group effort, something you painfully lack. You retreat, nursing a bruised leg from the close encounter. The lesson is clear. Solitary survival demands humility and adaptability. You must find other ways to sustain yourself. As you wander back to your shelter, you notice an unusual sight, a cluster of bright red berries hanging low on a bush. The color is striking, almost too perfect against the muted forest tones. You hesitate, remembering the dangers of toxic berries that early humans risked every day. You recall that some tribes used taste tests or animal behavior to gauge edibility, but even then, mistakes were common and sometimes deadly. Historians still debate the sophistication of early food safety practices, but caution has always been key. You decide to sample a single berry, waiting carefully for any adverse reaction. The taste is sweet but slightly bitter, and you feel no immediate discomfort. A small victory in this precarious existence. Gathering more carefully, you stash the berries away, a precious resource for the days ahead. Back at the rock shelter, the evening draws in quickly, shadows stretching long across the land. You manage to start a fire, the flickering flames offering warmth and a momentary sense of security. Firelight dances on the walls, illuminating primitive carvings and scratches, reminders that humans have long sought to communicate and make sense of their world. You reflect on the role of storytelling in early human societies. Around fires, narratives were shared of hunts, of spirits, of survival lessons. These oral traditions cemented social bonds and passed wisdom from one generation to the next. Without community, you feel the loss of this rich cultural fabric keenly. As night deepens, the chorus of the wild resumes, the distant howl of wolves, the rustle of nocturnal creatures, the whisper of wind through the trees. You lay close to the fire, muscles tense, but eyes heavy. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but for tonight, you allow yourself to dream of companionship, safety, and perhaps a life beyond mere survival. Dawn comes not as a gentle blessing, but as a wake-up slap across the senses. Brisk air biting your skin, and a raw ache throbbing in your back from sleeping on stone. You stretch carefully, body stiff like drying leather, and wince at the pain in your thigh from yesterday's run-in with a wild boar. You survived? Yes, but you're nowhere near thriving. The Stone Age isn't impressed by your effort. It just keeps demanding more. You start the morning by checking your dwindling resources, a few berries, some roots, and your barely holding together spear. Your fire's gone out, again, and rebuilding it will cost more energy than you can afford right now. But it's not just about food or warmth today. No, today you start to feel the gnawing ache of a deeper problem, the lack of human touch, of conversation, of even a grunted word. You're learning firsthand that loneliness can kill as surely as starvation. In the actual Stone Age, humans didn't live like lone wolves. They moved in small bands, typically 20 to 50 people working together, protecting each other, and, perhaps most importantly, talking to each other. You, meanwhile, talk to birds and rocks. And unlike you, early humans didn't have to guess about how to clean a wound or keep a fire going. They had generations of shared experience. You sigh and begin walking, tracing the same path you used yesterday toward the creek. With luck, you might find more berries or catch sight of smaller prey. lizards, rabbits, birds. Honestly, at this point, you'd settle for an egg. Your ears prick at a new sound, a rhythmic tapping. Following the noise, you come upon a pair of woodpeckers working a tree like a drum. It's mesmerizing for a moment, and you marvel that even in a world so hostile, there's beauty. Then you remember, beauty doesn't fill a stomach. Still, something stirs in you. Early humans were deeply attuned to the natural world. The way birds flew, the shape of clouds, the tracks in the mud. These weren't idle observations. They were signals, maps, guides. Some researchers even suggest that humans developed a sort of proto-calendar based on animal behavior and seasonal patterns, though that theory's still hotly debated. You forage along the edges of the creek, digging up more wild tubers and spotting a few green shoots that look vaguely like leeks. You crush one between your fingers. Strong smell, but not unpleasant. Worth a try. You take a small bite, wait. No burning. No dizziness. Seems safe. You keep moving, partly to look for more food, partly to escape the creeping despair. The quiet is not peaceful anymore. It's isolating. You try humming a tune, but your voice is raspy from dehydration and silence. You murmur nonsense under your breath just to hear something human. Then you stumble upon something both disturbing and intriguing. A crude tool. A shard of obsidian wedged into a split stick. It looks almost like an axe or scraper. Your heart jumps. Could it be the work of another human? Are you not alone? But there are no footprints, no signs of recent habitation. You pick it up. The craftsmanship is crude, but smarter than what you've made. You wonder who built it, and when. Historians believe tool innovation was contagious. One clever person's design could ripple through tribes like wildfire. It raises an unsettling question. What if that tribe is still around? Your mind spirals. You scan the area cautiously. Are you being watched? After a long, tense pause, you head back toward your shelter with the tool tucked into your belt. It's heavier than it looks and leaves your hips sore after only a few minutes. But you don't care. It's a connection, however distant, to another mind. And that, more than food, feels vital. Later, as you work to restart your fire, you think about communication. Not the grunting caveman caricature Hollywood loves, but real proto-language. Archaeological evidence suggests humans had complex ways of expressing ideas long before formal language evolved. Facial expressions, hand signals, even art on cave walls were all ways of saying, I'm here. This is what I've seen. This is what I fear. You scratch a mark onto the rock face near your shelter. Just a symbol, a shape. It means nothing really, but it feels like you've said something. Maybe it means I survived today. Fire crackles to life again with painful effort. You roast your meager findings. Roots, tubers, and those suspicious onion shoots. The taste is bitter, but edible. Your stomach churns, unsure whether it's hunger or warning. You chew slowly, cautiously. The stars emerge, blanketing the night sky in an impossible infinity. You stare up, neck aching, and imagine what it must have been like to look at these stars as an early human. No light pollution, no distractions, just wonder. Do they see gods? Do they trace maps? Some fringe theories even suggest early humans used stars to navigate migration paths, although historians still argue whether that was intuition or real sky-reading knowledge. As your fire dwindles to embers, you curl up under your hide covering, every joint stiff and your skin slick with sweat and grit. You shiver, not from cold, but from the sheer mental strain. Isolation is eroding you. One more day survived, but you're not thriving. You're just not dead yet. And somehow, that's enough to keep going. You wake up disoriented, blinking at the slowly brightening sky above your shelter. The fire's gone out again. Your fingers are stiff with cold and caked in dirt. You curl them into fists and try to feel something other than fatigue. But it's hard to tell where your body ends and the ache begins now. You're no longer surviving day by day. It's hour by hour now. Today is different, though. You're out of food, nearly out of strength, and you've begun to feel a creeping fear. Not of predators, not of illness, but of what happens when your mind starts slipping. That old friend, sleep deprivation, is coming back with new tricks. A buzzing in your ears flashes at the edge of your vision. And worse, you started to talk to your tools. You glance at your stone knife, crudely sharpened yesterday, using the shard of obsidian you found. You've given it a name, though you try not to admit that out loud. If nothing else, it helps to pretend you're not entirely alone. Today, you need protein. Your body is craving it. Tubers and berries won't cut it anymore. Not when your muscles feel like they're unraveling. You consider trying to hunt again, but yesterday's boar incident is still fresh. Your legs still bruised, the memory still stinging. So instead, you shift your focus to traps. You've seen them before in books. Primitive snares using tension and natural bait. The kind early humans might have used to catch small game like rabbits, hares, or birds. There's debate among archaeologists about just how widespread trap technology was in prehistory, but most agree it was ingenious and brutally efficient. The problem? You're not ingenious, and you have no idea what you're doing. Still, necessity makes a decent teacher. You search for vines strong enough to act as tension cords, and after a frustrating hour and a half, you piece together something that vaguely resembles a noose and trigger trap. You set it near a cluster of berry bushes, hopefully a snack zone for unsuspecting critters. As you work, your mind wanders dangerous territory in this place. You think about how early humans likely passed trap-making knowledge from one generation to another. It wasn't written down, of course. It was learned by watching, failing, trying again. That oral tradition was everything. You, unfortunately, have no teacher. Just that voice in your head that's beginning to feel a little too chatty. With the trap set, you head toward the edge of the stream to check for fish again. Your last attempt with a spear was mostly an embarrassing splash fest, but today you're ready to try a different approach. You recall reading once about people using baskets to trap fish in narrow channels. You have no basket, but maybe you can build a funnel from rocks and logs to corner a few. You spend hours dragging stones, breaking branches, and arranging your fish funnel. It's crude, unstable, and probably won't work. But it's a task, and a task is better than lying in your shelter, counting your ribs. As you finish, you pause to wash your face in the stream. The reflection you see is unsettling. Your cheeks are hollow, your lips cracked, and your eyes don't look like yours. They're the eyes of someone who's seen too much and eaten too little. You sit down and stay there for a while, listening to the water, listening to the forest, listening for something inside yourself that still wants to make it to tomorrow. Then, snap, back at the trap. You scramble through the underbrush like a man possessed, tripping and scratching yourself on low branches. When you arrive, breath ragged and heart pounding, you see it. The vine pulled tight. Something's in the trap. It's a rabbit. Small, gray, trembling, and very, very real. It takes you longer than you'd like to end its life. Your hands shake. Your stomach turns. But you do it. And you whisper an apology, even though you know the rabbit doesn't care. Maybe it's for you. Maybe it's for the world that brought you to this point. You carry it back to your shelter like it's gold. You butcher the rabbit slowly, carefully, mimicking what you remember from videos and documentaries. Early humans would have done this together, sharing the meat, sharing the effort. You do it alone with a grim focus. The fire comes easier today. Maybe you're just getting better. You cook the rabbit slowly, turning it with your new stone knife, watching the fat drip and sizzle. The smell is overwhelming. It makes your mouth flood and your hands tremble. You eat too quickly. Of course you do. But you force yourself to slow down halfway through, tears running down your cheeks from the effort of resisting the primal urge to devour it all at once. Your body responds almost immediately. Warmth floods your limbs. Clarity returns to your head. It's not just calories, it's life itself. Later, as you sit by the fire, belly full for the first time in days, you find yourself humming again. A real tune this time, not just noise. A piece of music from a long time ago, and you can't remember the lyrics, but you hum it anyway. Because it feels human, and because it feels like something your ancestors would have done too. Music, after all, might be one of the oldest things we've ever created. Flutes made of bone date back 40,000 years. That's older than agriculture, older than most cave paintings. Historians still debate whether early music served a ritual purpose, a social one, or was just for joy. But one thing's certain, it mattered. You fall asleep humming, fingers curled around your stone knife, rabbit bones scattered near the fire. And for the first time in a long while, you don't dream of failing. You dream of surviving, just a little longer. You awaken with the scent of rabbit grease still lingering on your fingers, the fire long since faded to cold ash. Your stomach feels less like a clenched fist and more like a weary truce. For the first time since this nightmare began, you're not starving. But now the real work begins. Because survival isn't just about today. It's about tomorrow and the next day and the one after that. One rabbit isn't a turning point. It's a pause in the inevitable spiral. If anything, it's a cruel reminder of what you've been missing. And so you begin to plan, not for luxury, not even for comfort, but for continuity. You need a system, a rhythm, a way to exist here that doesn't burn you out every day just staying alive. Early humans didn't stumble around blind. They developed routines, seasonal migration paths, calendars etched into memory, into stone, into story. They watched the skies, tracked the animals, memorized the cycles of edible plants. You're still guessing every step, but you're learning. Painfully, desperately, still learning. Your first task is improving your shelter. It served as little more than a lean-to with dreams of being a proper hut. The frame's warped. The hides don't fully cover the entrance. And last night, something skittered across your chest as you slept. A lizard? A rat? You don't know, and you don't want to know. So you begin gathering branches, thatch, bark, anything pliable and water-resistant. You work until your hands blister, your back screams, and your arms tremble. The new walls go up crooked but tighter. You weave the roof covering tighter too, remembering some early shelters used interlaced mats of reeds, anchored with clay. You even pack mud into the cracks to keep out the wind. Still, as you work, you realize something. This structure, this hut of sticks and hides and hope, is not just about protection. It's about belonging. This is your den, your camp, your desperate claim on a world that keeps trying to evict you. Once finished, you sit back and admire it. It's still a joke by modern standards, primitive, drafty small. But here, it's luxury. You consider trying to build a chimney of sorts, just a hole to let smoke vent. The smoke keeps bugs away and masks your scent, which early humans likely understood in their own empirical way. There's a theory that smoke preservation of meat might have even started as an accident from smoky cooking fires. That smell you've come to love, that rich, savory aroma of roasted meat, might have been one of the Stone Age's first forms of food tech. You take mental stock of your supplies. Your stone tools are dulling. You'll need more obsidian or flint soon. Your rabbit trap remains intact, though you haven't checked it today. Water levels in the stream seem lower. Could be seasonal or just a temporary drop. Either way, you note it. You're beginning to think like a survivor. But all of this work, this maintenance, requires one key resource you're rapidly depleting: energy. So you go foraging again. This time, you walk farther, weaving into territory you've avoided before. The forest gets denser, more alive. Birds call to one another across the canopy. You spot claw marks on a tree. A bear? A large cat? Either way, it sets your nerves on edge. Still, you press on. You're rewarded with a patch of mushrooms growing in the shadow of an old log. They look inviting. Round caps. No obvious decay. You remember the cardinal rule of mushroom foraging. If you don't know, don't eat. But you're desperate. So you pluck one, break off a tiny piece, and rub it on your skin. You wait. No rash. No burning. Then you try the tiniest nibble. You sit down, wait. 10 minutes pass. Then 20. Your pulse races with every hiccup and burp, but nothing happens. You eat a second piece. Still nothing. So you harvest a few, wrap them in a hide scrap, and head back. When you reach camp, you find your trap triggered again. Another rabbit. Smaller this time, but still a victory. You feel your chest swell, not with pride, exactly, but with relief. The system might actually be working. Dinner is a feast by your new standards. Rabbit roasted over flame, mushrooms simmered in a carved stone depression filled with water. You even add a few crushed pine needles for flavor. It tastes sharp and earthy and alive. As you eat, you think about community again, about how early humans shared food not just out of necessity, but ritual, to bond, to create memory. There's speculation, still debated, that early humans had designated roles in meal prep, with some individuals known for particular skills. You imagine being known as the mushroom whisperer. You chuckle aloud. It's the first real laugh you've had in days. It feels strange, but then your thoughts turn darker. What if someone to show up? A real Stone Age band? Would they take you in? Or see you as a threat? What would they make of your mismatched, barely thought-out tools? Your awkward imitation of their daily life? Would they know you're a pretender? The next day, you begin expanding the fish trap. You add a second funnel, widen the stone channels, and try your hand at weaving a net from vine fibers. It's tedious work, and your fingers are already raw, but there's something meditative in the repetition. Weaving, pulling, tightening, just like early humans might have done when making fishing baskets, nets, or even sandals. You think of Otzi, the famous iceman found frozen in the Alps, over 5,000 years old. He had a backpack, shoes, and even a fire-starting kit. Not quite Stone Age, but close enough to remind you that people were already innovating long before recorded history began. And here you are, learning what they knew the hard way. By sunset, your trap is operational. You catch 2 small fish, spine-covered things with more bone than meat, but still edible. You add them to your stash and dry them near the fire to preserve them. Smoke curls gently upward, stinging your eyes. The wind picks up that night, howling through the trees like a haunted chorus. Your new shelter holds, barely, creaking like an old ship. You huddle under the hides and drift in and out of sleep, stomach growling, mind racing. And then you dream. But not of home, not of warm beds and glowing screens. You dream of stone, of bone tools, and animal eyes glinting in firelight, of drums echoing across plains, of voices, not your own, chanting in a tongue you almost understand. You wake up shaken, but something has shifted. You're not them. You will never be. But part of you is beginning to understand them. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. Dawn breaks with a thick fog draped across the trees, muffling every sound except your breath. You sit outside your shelter, knees pulled to your chest, watching the world turn pale and colorless. The fire's dead again, just glowing coals under a skin of ash. And for the first time, you don't panic about it. You just nod at it like an old friend who overslept. You'll get it going again later. What matters now is the realization pressing down on your chest like the weight of a boulder. You're not a visitor anymore. You're a resident, and residents plan ahead. Winter is coming. Not the dramatic TV kind, but the real kind, slow and brutal and without apology. Nights are colder. The air tastes drier. And the animals? Fewer tracks. The rabbits that danced around your traps a week ago are slipping away, sensing the shift. Even the birds seem quieter. You know what that means. You need to store food, not just for the next couple of days, but for the long, lean weeks to come. You need something ancient people spent entire seasons working toward: preservation. It's easy to forget that early humans didn't just scavenge, they strategized. They smoked meat, dried fruit, buried fish in ice or cool earth. They turned nature into a pantry. Sure, they didn't have refrigerators, but they had brains, and those brains turned every rock, pit and sunbeam into a tool. So you start experimenting. The first method you attempt is sun drying. You strip what little meat you have, mostly fish, a bit of rabbit, from the bone, slice it into thin strips, and lay it across flat rocks. You position them at an angle toward the rising sun. It's tedious, watching and adjusting throughout the day to keep the light focused. You wave away flies with fronds, grumble at ants, curse a cloud or two. But it's working. Slowly. Maybe. You're not sure how long to leave it, and you'd give anything for one of those vacuum-sealed beef jerky packets right now. But you make do. After all, historians still argue whether early food preservation methods were discovered deliberately or by accident. Was it instinct or invention? Did someone hang meat on a sunny rock and forget it there? Or did a group work together, noticing patterns in spoilage and sun? Either way, you're now part of that tradition. Next comes smoking. You build a tripod frame from 3 branches, lash them together at the top with vine cord, and suspend meat strips over your fire. Not directly above it, but off to the side where the smoke curls around the food without turning it to charcoal. The trick here is to keep the fire smoky, not hot. You feed it green wood, moss, damp bark. It sizzles and sputters, but the smoke pours thick and steady. It smells like hope. You try not to think about bacteria because you know too much. Modern food safety has spoiled you. Back then, the nose was the inspector. If it didn't smell right, you didn't eat it. No lab coats, no thermometers, just instinct. You wonder if yours is sharp enough yet. Spoiler alert, it's probably not. Still, you soldier on. One of your fish fillets curls at the edge, stiff and leathery. You taste it. It's not exactly delicious, but it's not deadly either. You call that a win. Then, the unexpected, you discover a pit. It's an old animal den or maybe a collapsed tree root hollow. Cool air seeps out from it like an underground whisper. You crouch, peer in, and feel the shift, maybe 4 or 5 degrees cooler than the surface. Not quite a fridge, but definitely closer to one than the open air. A primitive cold storage. You drag rocks to widen the mouth, shore up the edges with clay, and begin lining it with moss and dry leaves. Over the next day, you transfer your dried and smoked food into this pit. You even dig a small drainage trench beside it so rain won't pool and ruin everything. You cover it with bark and camouflage it with brush. Congratulations, you now have a larder. Just like that, you're no longer living day to day. You're living week to week. Maybe longer, if you're lucky. Of course, none of this matters if you don't have enough to fill it. So you go big. You decide it's time to attempt a proper hunt. No rabbits. No fish. You want a larger animal. Something with enough meat to last. Something worthy of your new smokehouse and your earthy larder. You fashion a crude spear, reinforce it with fire-hardened wood, and practice by hurling it at a tree. You miss. You try again. You hit the tree, but the spear splinters. You curse. You try again, and again, and again. Historians still debate whether early humans used throwing spears primarily or relied more on thrusting techniques during hunts. What's certain is that either way, it was a skill honed over years, not hours. You don't have years, so you adapt. You build a small blind from branches and leaves near a game trail. You sprinkle some crushed berries around as bait. You wait, for hours. Then the shadows shift and a deer appears. Not close, not interested, just passing through. But it's enough. Your body floods with adrenaline. You freeze. Watch. Learn. You begin to understand the rhythm of its movement. How it pauses every few steps. How its ears flick independently. How it doesn't just look for danger, it listens for silence. Because in the wild, silence often means predator. That night, you don't catch anything, but you've marked the trail. You know its habits. That's more than you knew yesterday. And as you return to your camp, smoke rising, meat drying, your storage pit cooling, you feel something else blooming inside you. Competence. No, not mastery. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But you're no longer just playing cave dweller. You're becoming one. And with that comes a flicker of something else, fear. Because if this becomes too normal, too comfortable, what happens if you ever go back? What happens when the silence breaks? You wake up to the weight of frost clinging to the hides draped over your shelter's frame. The world outside looks like it's been lightly dusted with powdered bone, faint white on every leaf, every blade of grass. Winter isn't just approaching anymore. It's here. Your breath fogs the air in front of your face. The cold doesn't stab, it seeps. It worms into your joints, into your spine, into your thoughts. You pull your arms tighter around your chest, curling into yourself like a snail retreating into its shell. But you can't afford to stay huddled for long, because here, inactivity isn't comfort, it's danger. Cold in the Stone Age was more than inconvenient. It was lethal. Early humans didn't just suffer through it, they had to outthink it. Every minute wasted was a minute closer to hypothermia. And unlike you, they didn't have the option of curling up in a central heated home with a fuzzy blanket and cocoa. So you rise. Your first step is to feed the fire. The embers are nearly dead, glowing like tired eyes beneath a crumble of ash. You blow on them softly at first, then harder. A tiny lick of orange flutters to life. You pile on dried bark and twigs until the flame takes. The warmth spreads slowly, reluctantly. This fire isn't a convenience. It's your anchor. It cooks your food, dries your clothes, boils your water. But most importantly, it tells the cold you're not surrendering. You remember that the control of fire was a game changer in human evolution. Historians believe Homo erectus tamed it roughly 1 to 1.5 million years ago. And though debate remains about how they first did it, was it lightning strikes, spontaneous combustion for dry vegetation, or even friction? There's no doubt that once our ancestors had it, everything changed. Cooking made nutrients more accessible, reduced disease, and allowed us to survive in harsher climates. But that fire? It needed constant babysitting, just like yours. You spend the morning collecting more firewood, your 4th run this week. You're running out of nearby options. The deadfall is picked clean, so you break apart some of your earliest failed construction attempt for fuel. A strange, full circle moment. Then comes your next challenge, insulation. The cold's not just at night now. It hovers all day like a predator waiting for your guard to drop. The hides you've draped over your shelter help, but they're thin and stiff. You recall how some ancient people lined their clothing with moss, feathers, even dry grass. Not for aesthetics, pure function. So you follow their lead. You gather fistfuls of dry grass, stuff them into the cracks in your walls, then pad your clothing. You shove a layer between your tunic and your skin, then another between your leggings. You feel ridiculous, like a scarecrow auditioning for a caveman play. But the warmth it brings is real. And suddenly you understand the brilliance behind even primitive textiles. Early humans wore capes, leggings, tunics made from animal hide, often softened with fat or brain matter. Yes, brains. Not for superstition, but because brains contain oils that help condition raw leather. Weird, right? But also effective. Some archaeologists even found evidence of tailored clothing dating back tens of thousands of years. Stitches, decorative trims, tiny bone needles. Imagine sewing a winter coat from deer hide using a sliver of sharpened bone. That's not just survival, that's design. Your needle, by the way, is pathetic. A sharpened twig that keeps breaking when you try to push it through the hide. You try whittling a new one with a tiny notch for thread, using gut fibers from one of your older rabbit meals. It's hard, slow work, but it's progress. As you sew a crude patch into your leggings, you hear a distant rustle. You freeze, not the wind. Heavier, calculated. Something is moving out there. You wait, crouched by the fire, hand on your half-charred spear. And then it's gone. No sound, no movement, but the feeling lingers. The Stone Age wasn't just about surviving the cold. It was about surviving each other. You're not the only one desperate out here. Whether it's another human or a predator, you've now officially entered the territory of competition. You remember reading that Neanderthals likely coexisted with Homo sapiens for thousands of years. Some think they were in direct competition. Others suggest they occasionally interbred. Historians still argue whether we absorbed them or eradicated them, or both. You're not sure which thought is scarier, but it brings to mind something important. Early humans were not alone. They often lived in bands, tribes, or kin groups. 10 to 30 people, sometimes more. They watched out for one another, shared resources, pooled knowledge. You don't have that. You are one, and it's starting to show. Loneliness gnaws at you harder than hunger now. The silence feels heavier. You speak out loud just to hear your own voice. You start giving names to inanimate objects, the fire, the water pot, even the rabbit's skin blanket. You joke with them, curse at them, confide in them. Because without company, even fake conversations help keep your mind from unraveling. You wonder if early people talked to the wind, the trees, the stars, not because they believed in spirits necessarily, but because anything was better than silence. And in that moment, you get it. You really get it. You're not meant to be alone out here. Still, the cold doesn't care about your feelings. You build a windbreak, a half-circle wall of stacked stones and brush, set just outside your shelter's entrance. It blocks the worst gusts, and you immediately notice the difference. Your hands stop trembling for the first time in hours. You could cry from the relief. But there's still the matter of food. You check your larder pit. A couple strips of dried fish, a morsel of smoked rabbit, and the last of your bitter wild nuts. It's not enough. Not even for a single Snowden day. So you go hunting again. This time, you follow a new trail, one with hoof prints. Maybe deer, maybe something smaller. The prints are fresh, and you take your time, moving as quietly as possible. Hours pass. Then, in a thicket, you spot movement. A wild pig. Your pole spikes. You crouch, move slowly, positioning yourself downwind. You ready your spear. It's heavier than it should be, the wood swelling with damp. You hurl. The spear arcs and misses by inches. The pig bolts. You crash through the brush in pursuit, but you know it's futile. The beast disappears into the forest's belly. You collapse to your knees, breath heaving. The cold presses in. The failure burns. This could have been your food for days. Your chance to actually gain a little weight back. But now it's gone, and the sun's dipping low. You walk back in near darkness. Defeated, exhausted, hungry, but not broken. Because tomorrow, you'll try again. And the day after. That's the thing no one tells you about the Stone Age. It wasn't about winning every day. It was about not quitting, even when it would have been easier. Especially then. By now, the forest no longer feels like an alien world. It's not exactly a friend. You wouldn't trust it with your secrets, but it's no longer an unrelenting enemy either. It's just home. A prickly, moody, occasionally murderous home. And like all homes, you learn to navigate its moods. But now comes something no fire can guard against. No spear can chase off. Illness. You wake up shivering, but not from the cold this time. It's deep in your bones, a feverish ache. Your head pulses with heat, your joints creak, and even your skin feels tender, as if your body has declared war on itself. You're sick, and this is what separates modern you from Stone Age survivalism more than anything else. You can't call for help. There's no medicine cabinet to raid, no warm bath to soak in, no honey lemon tea waiting on a kitchen counter. In the Stone Age, illness was a slow stalker. A cough could turn into death. A small cut could fester. A bit of spoiled meat could leave you doubled over, praying to deities you didn't know you believed in. And there were no antibiotics, no gauze, no ibuprofen. Just grit and guesswork. You curl up near the fire, drawing your hides tight around your shoulders. Even the flicker of flame feels too bright. Every sound is sharp, every draft cruel. Your stomach is in knots, your throat dry as sand. You're forced to make a decision. Stay put and conserve energy, or drag yourself out to find help from nature. You choose the latter. Slowly, pitifully, your legs tremble beneath you. The world sways with each step. But you remember something, a patch of plants not far from the stream. You didn't pay them much attention before, but now, every leaf holds the promise of salvation. You reach the patch and squint through bleary eyes. You wish you had your phone with its handy plant identification app. Instead, you rely on vague instincts and foggy memories from documentaries. One plant has smooth, elongated leaves and a faint, minty smell. Another oozes a bitter sap. You remember that early humans likely observed which plants animals avoided, which ones were used in patterns by older tribe members, and which ones caused side effects. It was trial and error, sometimes fatal. You chew a few leaves of the mini one. It soothes your throat barely. Placebo or not, you cling to it. Back at your shelter, you bundle tighter, sip water, and try to sleep. You hallucinate. Dreams and memories twist together. You're in your apartment again, shivering under blankets, while Netflix autoplays the next episode. Then you're in the woods again, curled in a deer hide. Your body thrashes in both. By morning, the fever breaks slightly. You're drenched in sweat, weak but not gone. You survived the worst night of your life in the Stone Age. Barely. And now, you're furious. Because it doesn't end with survival. It never does. You're alive, but everything around you is falling apart. Your firewood stock is low. Your traps have snapped without catching anything. Your larder pit stinks. You pull out a strip of rabbit and nearly gag. Something went wrong. Mold or bacteria, or just poor technique. And then, the kicker, you slip. Your foot catches on the icy edge of the stream. You fall hard, twisting your ankle. The pain is instant and volcanic, radiating up your leg. You scream, raw and loud. No one hears. You lie there, teeth clenched, trying to breathe through it. And in that moment, you understand something ancient and real and terrifying. One bad step could be the end. Historians estimate that broken bones in prehistoric people weren't rare. What's astonishing is that many of them healed. There are skeletal remains with clear signs of recovery. Knit-together fractures, regrown bone, careful alignment. That implies others must have helped, fed the injured, protected them, cleaned their wounds. You don't have that luxury. You hobble back to your shelter, dragging your leg. Your ankle swells like rising bread dough. You rip a strip of hide and wrap it tightly, trying to immobilize the joint. It hurts. Everything hurts. And your hands won't stop shaking. But you don't cry. You laugh. Because it's either that or scream. You lie back against the earth and look up at the sky. The clouds drift by, uncaring. The trees sway gently. The forest is calm. And you realize again that you're spectacularly outmatched. Yet, you're still here. Even injured, you work. You lash together a crude crutch from a branch and a bent limb. You test it, hobble around, refining the design. Not elegant, but functional. You trap small game, slowly. Not with grand chases, but with subtle setups. You bait your traps with crushed berries and wait. Hours, days. Eventually, a squirrel. Then a rabbit. Barely enough, but it's a pulse of life. You boil water constantly now. Even if you're not sure about the safety of the source, boiling is your insurance. That knowledge, something modern you probably skimmed in a survival book once, is now gospel. Bring it to a rolling boil. Count to 60. Pray. You crush charcoal into powder and mix it with water to filter silt. You learn that the burnt remains of last week's fire can do more than just smudge your hands. You're becoming a Stone Age apothecary. You mash mint and moss into a pulp, applying it to the bruising around your ankle. You chew willow bark. Early humans likely figured out it dulls pain, thanks to salicin, the same compound found in modern aspirin. Did they know that scientifically? No, but they knew it worked. Historians still argue whether prehistoric medicinal knowledge was passed orally, ritually, or through pure observation. Whatever the method, you're living proof that desperation breeds experimentation. Every small success feels monumental. You wake up one morning and your ankle doesn't scream. It whines, sure, but not like before. Your fever hasn't returned. Your firewood is stacked. And you smile at this. Your squirrel jerky is drying evenly. You've weathered your first Stone Age illness. And though you're still lean, still sore, still cold, you feel a flicker of pride. You didn't tap out. You didn't die of dysentery like some Oregon Trail footnote. You made it through. But deep down, you also know something else. This was just a mild infection. A minor sprain. A warning shot. Next time, you might not be so lucky. So you double down. You refine your gear. Reinforce your shelter with thicker brush. Build a tighter roof slope to shed snow. You rework your larder with better airflow and dig a secondary pit for backup storage. You even start carving little notches into a stick. Tracking days? Phases of the moon? You're not sure, but feels right. You hum while you work, an ancient tune made of boredom and rhythm. You speak to your fire like it's a roommate. You name your favorite rock. You build a tiny wooden idol. Not religious, just human. Something to look at. Something that reminds you of people. Because more than anything else, you realize this. Stone Age survival isn't just about eating and not freezing. It's about staying sane. And sanity, it turns out, is as fragile as a twig underfoot. You wake to birdsong, not the cute kind that chirps melodically outside bedroom windows, but a sharp, insistent chatter that seems to mock your fragile consciousness. For a moment, you think you're back home, maybe on a camping trip, sore from a hike, but nothing serious. Then your back spasms from the hard ground, your ankle throbs under the makeshift brace, and the cold stabs through your furs like 1,000 icy fingers. Right, you're still here, still surviving the Stone Age. But something is off. The air smells different, thicker, charged, wet. You peer up at the sky. Gray, flat, ominous. Rain is coming. You scramble, hobble, into action. Because in the Stone Age, a downpour isn't just an inconvenience. It's a full-on assault. Your shelter, built from branches, mud, and brute optimism, isn't made to withstand a true storm. And rain, when it comes, is merciless. You fortify the roof first, layering more evergreen boughs, packing moss and earth to seal gaps. It's exhausting, but necessary. Then you dig a trench around the shelter's perimeter, like a crude moat. You pray it channels the runoff, keeping your fire pit from becoming a puddle. But the fire itself? That's the real danger. You build a small rock ring around it, stack bark panels to act as a crude windbreak, and pray the tarp of boughs above holds. The fire must live. Without it, you are food for the cold. The kind of cold that doesn't just nip, it devours. Rain starts slow. A tap-tap on leaves like a warning. Then, suddenly, it's everywhere. A deluge. The trench works? Barely. Water snakes around your shelter instead of through it. But the roof groans, sags, drips. It's only a matter of time. You watch your fire like it's a newborn. Shield it with your body. Feed it dry bits from the bottom of your stash. Whisper to it. Still the flames shrink. Still, you shiver. And in the middle of it all, your stomach growls. Rain drowns everything. Scent trails, small game movement, even your sense of hope. Traps remain empty. The woods are silent. Nothing wants to move in this weather, not even prey. But you must eat. So, soaked and stiff, you limp out anyway. You gather snails clinging to tree trunks, worms wriggling to the surface. You crush a few bugs between your fingers and eat them raw. The taste? Earthy, gritty, revolting. But your body doesn't care. You remember, prehistoric diets weren't glamorous. Sure, mammoths and bison make for sexy museum dioramas, but the day-to-day meal? Bugs, roots, bark, frogs, whatever didn't kill you fast enough to matter. Historians still argue whether early humans leaned more heavily on plants or animals for sustenance. Probably both. Probably whatever they could get. You boil the worms and snails over your trembling fire. It's the only thing warm in this world. The broth is thin but rich with calories and minerals. You sip it like it's a $200 bottle of wine. The storm rages for days. Your world becomes mud and damp and shadow. Your clothes, once dried and smoked, now sag with moisture. Your feet, constantly wet, begin to blister. The hide wrap around your ankle rubs and irritates. Your joints ache in the cold. Even your tools rust slightly. Stone can chip and warp when wet. You're not dying, not directly, but death is seeping in through the cracks. And mentally, you're unraveling. You find yourself talking to the fire more often, singing to it, making up names for each flame. You name the puddles inside your shelter. You hum tuneless melodies and rock back and forth. At one point, you weep, quietly, with no theatrics. Just tears, hot and confused, sliding down your cheeks and mixing with the rain. You think of home, not nostalgically, but bitterly, because the idea of home now feels fictional. Another life, another person's memory. You dream of running water from faucet. You dream of socks, dry, warm, absurdly soft socks. You dream of oranges. When the storm finally ends, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like being left alive just long enough for the next trial. The sky clears. The sun peeks through like a guilty friend who didn't help when you needed them. Everything glistens, saturated and quiet. You crawl out of the shelter. Your body is shriveled and sore. Your eyes sting from smoke and fatigue. Your ankle feels like someone drove a wedge through it. But you're alive. Again, you spend the next days repairing. Your firewood is gone. Your pit traps have collapsed. Your furs are molded. Even your morale is paper thin. But the air smells sweet, clean, and the animals are back. You set traps again. You forage, carefully, selectively. You dry what you can in the returning sun. Even your soul feels like it needs to be wrung out and hung up. You find mushrooms, some familiar looking, some not. And here, again, the Stone Age roulette wheel spins. You test cautiously, remembering that early humans might have used animals as taste testers, or watched elders for patterns, or just gambled. You slice off a tiny bite and wait. No vomiting? No hallucinations? Good. You eat more. You chew on pine needles. Yes, pine needles, because they're packed with vitamin C. Who knew? Well, apparently Stone Age does now. You brew a tea from boiled bark and mint, and while it's not exactly Starbucks, it's warm and it doesn't taste like wet sock. You craft a new hide wrap. This one's better. More padding, less friction. You even stitch a strap from dried sinew, stabilizing the brace. It's ugly and smelly and barely holds, but you beam like it's custom orthopedic gear. You start talking to the birds. Not metaphorically, you literally start mimicking their calls. Not to hunt them, but to feel included. To trick your brain into thinking it's not alone. You spend an entire morning trying to imitate a squirrel's chatter. When you finally get it right, judging by the panicked response of a nearby squirrel, you pump a fist in triumph. You're not okay, but you're adapting. You carve more tools, this time with decorative notches. Not functional, but pretty. Art. Yes, actual art. The human brain craves beauty, even in misery. You arrange stones around your shelter in a circle. For no reason, except symmetry. It calms you. You make a necklace of bones. Not morbid, just something to wear. Something human. Historians still argue whether early jewelry had spiritual significance or was just status-driven. Maybe both. Maybe neither. But for you, it's proof of life. Of you. Still here. Still you. And then, just when you think the worst is behind you, you smell it. Smoke. Not your smoke. Someone else's. Your heart seizes. Another person? Another survivor? Your mind reels with questions. Do you run toward it? Hide? Announce yourself? You remember, not all prehistoric people were friendly. Not all tribes welcomed strangers. Some saw outsiders as threats, rivals, even prey. Your fire dims. You grab your spear. You crouch in the undergrowth, waiting, watching. And then you see it, just a glimpse. A figure cloaked in furs, tall, moving deliberately, carrying something on their back. Your heart pounds. You're not alone anymore. But that doesn't mean you're safe. You stay frozen, low in the undergrowth, body quivering. Not just from the lingering dampness, but from a flood of adrenaline that surges through every cell. That figure, just a silhouette against the charred sky, may be the first human being you've seen in what feels like a lifetime. You'd expect to feel joy, relief, elation. You don't. You feel hunted. The stranger moves like a predator, careful, purposeful. They don't stumble or pause to marvel at a weird mushroom the way you did your first week. They know this forest, the way their eyes flicker, how they lean into the trees, how they step without snapping twigs. It's all deliberate. This isn't a lost soul wandering into your wilderness. This is someone who's always belonged here. And you're the intruder. You try to retreat without being seen, but a dry twig cracks under your heel. The stranger's head jerks. Dead silence. The forest, for a heartbeat, stops breathing. Then they vanish. Just gone. You blink, and the figure is no longer where it was. Your pulse hits a sprint. You grip your crude spear tighter. Your brain screams for you to move, but your body's frozen, too busy calculating every way this could go horribly wrong. A light wind blows, swaying the leaves. You strain to hear footsteps, breathing, anything, and then a voice, low, unfamiliar, calling out in a language you don't know. It's not angry, not aggressive, but not welcoming either. It's like someone calling into a cave, half expecting an echo, half expecting a monster. You don't respond. Instead, you back up slowly, breath by breath, heart hammering. You make it to your shelter and collapse behind the wall of sticks and mud like it's a medieval fortress. You wait. Nothing. No movement. No sound. No further calls. You survive the night, but it's fitful. Every rustle becomes footsteps. Every animal cry sounds human. Your dreams are fractured. Images of fire, running feet, strange faces with bone jewelry and hollow eyes. By dawn, you're exhausted and no less paranoid. You know now, you are no longer alone. And in the Stone Age, that could be far more terrifying than solitude. So you adapt. You start camouflaging your shelter. Mud smeared over the brighter patches. Branches laid to obscure its shape. You clear paths that only you know, weaving confusing trails around the forest. You move your food stash farther away. You create false fire rings to make it look like you've moved camp. You become, reluctantly, a paranoid little shadow in the woods. But here's the thing. It works. Days pass. The stranger doesn't return. Maybe they're just as cautious as you. Maybe they were just passing through. Or maybe, just maybe, they're watching from afar. Historians still argue whether early human groups were mostly cooperative or competitive. There's evidence for both. Some communities seem to have traded goods, shared tools, even buried their dead with affection. Others? Evidence of conflict. Scars on skulls. Weapons buried with warriors. Burnt villages. You assume the worst. Because the Stone Age rewards pessimists. You shift your routines, wake before dawn, move quietly, eat in silence. You learn to listen, really listen. Every snapped twig is a code. Every broken fern a message. You come across a footprint one day. Human, bare, slightly larger than yours. Fresh, not from you. And just like that, you spiral. You speed up your tool production. You make not just spears now, but traps, pitfalls, swinging branch snares. Nothing fancy, just enough to delay an attacker. You create alarms. Tiny piles of leaves that crunch when stepped on. Dangling shells that clink if disturbed. You even practice intimidation techniques. Deep grunting, slamming sticks on trees. You do your best impersonation of a bear on bad mushrooms. You become a feral actor in your own survival drama. And oddly, you improve. Your senses sharpen. Your instincts sharpen. You even move differently, less like a wandering tourist, more like a creature of the woods. You track better. You read subtle signs in the underbrush. You find fresh scat and know it's a deer. You see broken branches and realize which way a boar fled. You're becoming what Stone Age humans had to be: hyper-aware, relentlessly adaptive, intuitively strategic. But one day, the stranger leaves a message. You find it on a rock near your stream, a small pile of stones arranged in a spiral. At the center, a knotted tuft of hair. Human hair. You don't touch it. You don't move it. You just stare. Is it a threat? A greeting? A warning? Historians still debate the meaning of prehistoric symbols. The famous Chauvet cave paintings in France, dating back over 30,000 years, feature animals, abstract signs, and handprints. Were they art? Ritual? Storytelling? Just doodles? Nobody knows, and neither do you. You just know it's deliberate. Someone wants you to see it, wants you to know they're here, and you can't help wondering, how many of their kind are there? You move camp. It takes 2 days to tear down, relocate, and rebuild. But you do it. You hide deeper in the forest, where moss thickens and the trees muffle sound. You find a cave, a shallow one, with room to stretch and a view of the horizon. You fortify the entrance. You dig a runoff channel. You smoke out the bugs. It's not comfortable, but secure. You create new routes to forage, avoiding the stream, avoiding everything familiar. And slowly, your world shrinks. It becomes the radius of safety you carve out with sheer fear and stubbornness. And every day, you reinforce it, until something happens that changes everything. You're out one morning, collecting edible roots when you see smoke. Thin, white, steady. Not your fire. Again. But this time, something inside you shifts. Not fear. Curiosity. You approach. Carefully, quietly like a ghost. And you see them. A small group. 3 people. 2 adults. 1 child. Hunched over a fire, roasting meat. Talking in low voices. They look normal. Dirty, tired, lean. But not dangerous. You watch from a distance. They don't notice you. Or maybe they do, and choose not to react. The child laughs. A simple, shrill, happy sound. And you cry. You cry because the sound of joy feels like a forgotten song. Because for weeks, months, you've only known survival. Fear, cold, wet, silence. But now you see something else. Humans, not predators, not ghosts, just people. And something inside you dares to hope. You leave before they see you. You don't want to shatter the moment. But now you know you are not the last. You are not the only one. And maybe, just maybe, this world isn't as lonely as you feared. You move like a shadow through the undergrowth now. Not because you're hiding, but because it's who you've become. Your feet avoid dry twigs without thinking. Your eyes catch movement before it registers consciously. The Stone Age hasn't just tested you. It has reshaped you. And yet, for all your animal instinct and feral cunning, something deeper begins to stir. An old, stubborn flame buried under the layers of survival. Curiosity. You think again about the child's laugh, that echo of something long lost. And you start to wonder, what if there's more than just surviving out here? What if this brutal landscape holds not only predators, storms, and starvation, but connection? Stories? Maybe even friendship? That's a dangerous thought. You've trained yourself for fear, for solitude, for the relentless grind of making it to the next sunrise. Letting your guard down now is like handing over your spear. But the thing is, your spirit is tired. Not your muscles, not your stomach. Your spirit. That unseen part of you that needs more than calories and shelter to keep going. So, one day, you make a decision. You return to the area where you saw the group. This time, not to spy, but to leave a message. You select a flat stone. On it, you carve, crudely, with a sharpened flint, a spiral. It's not much, just a shape you remember from the hair-tuft message left near your stream. You add a mark, 3 slashes, evenly spaced. Your attempt at saying, I saw you. I am peaceful. I am alone. You leave the stone balanced near the spot where their fire once burned, and then retreat. The next day, it's gone. No other sign. No footprint. No new fire. But the message was seen. You don't go back right away. You wait. Let the air settle. Let the forest breathe. When you return 2 days later, something new is there. A car figurine, small from bone, roughly shaped like a person, arms outstretched. It leans against a tree root as if left on purpose. You stare at it, breath caught somewhere between wonder and disbelief. This is a communication. Primitive, symbolic, risky. You take it with you. Back in your shelter, you examine it by firelight. Its surface is smooth in places, scratched in others. Its arms are not just open, but almost reaching. You hold it like a relic, like a child would hold a teddy bear, as absurd as that feels. This is the first gift you've received since being cast into the Stone Age. And it changes something. The next days shift into a strange rhythm. You go about your survival. Hunting, gathering, maintaining your traps. But now your senses are attuned to more than danger. You begin leaving little gifts of your own. A woven grass braid, a colorful feather, a piece of honeycomb. You don't know what they mean, but they mean something. You're not fluent in this silent language, but you've joined the conversation. Historians still argue whether symbolic gift-giving existed in early human societies or whether it evolved later with language. The lines blur. Ritual and exchange, friendship and alliance. What's clear is that some prehistoric communities buried their dead with crafted objects, suggesting a concept of memory, respect, and possibly even love. One morning, you wake to find footprints just outside your camp. Not close enough to threaten, but not accidental. They came. They saw where you sleep. They didn't harm you. You're not sure if that's comforting or ominous. Later, you hear singing. Yes, singing. Not melodic in the modern sense. Not top 40 hits by the Riverbank Band, but rhythmic, intentional, low hums and clicks echoing off the trees. You freeze, harden your throat, and listen. Then another voice joins in. Then a third. You don't approach, but you hum back. Quietly. Just a note. A vibration in your chest that you push out like a smoke signal. The singing stops. You laugh nervously, then cover your mouth like you've broken a rule. But still, nothing attacks you. No spears fly from the trees. The day continues. That night, you think long about community, about trust, about how dangerous it is to want it, but also how essential. The Stone Age didn't just kill the weak. It starved the lonely. People needed people to survive childbirth, to survive injury, to pass down knowledge, to rest, knowing someone else stood guard. You never appreciated the luxury of shared labor before. Someone else starting the fire. Someone else gathering while you rested. Someone else being there when a leopard snarled from the trees. You dream of that again, but dreams are fragile currency here. Still, you prepare. You make more food than you need. You dry meat on racks of sticks. You store roots in leaf-lined pits. You clean your camp, not just for safety, but for presentation. Like you're expecting company. And eventually, you get it. It starts with a rustle, then a face. One of the adults from a group. Painted skin, weathered eyes. They hold their hands up empty, open. You mirror them. You both stand, still as stones, watching each other. No words, just breathing. Then the child appears behind them and smiles. You relax, just slightly, and your visitor steps forward. They sit across from your fire. You hand them a piece of dried meat. They accept it. That night, you don't sleep much, but not from fear, from awe. This world, brutal, raw, merciless, has cracked open just a sliver, enough to let something else in. Not safety, but maybe connection. The next days are cautious, strange, and full. You begin to learn gestures, signals, primitive signs. The group teaches you their word for water. You teach them your sound for fire. Together, you point, mimic, laugh awkwardly. You trade knowledge like ancient philosophers. One fern for one flint trick, one fish hook for one fire-starting hack. And slowly, you stop feeling like prey. You start feeling human again. Not fully, not yet. But the journey that began with terror, filth, and panic has brought you to this precarious peace. You're not thriving, but you're not just surviving either. You're belonging, just a little. This is still the Stone Age. You still go hungry sometimes. You still run when the sky cracks and a saber-toothed shadow moves across the valley. You still clutch your spear like a lifeline. But now, someone laughs beside you. Now, someone shares their fire. Now, you are not alone. And that, somehow, feels like the greatest miracle of all. Now, dim the lights just a little more. Let your breathing slow. Let the images of wild forests, flint fires, and cautious hand gestures blur into the warmth behind your eyelids. You're no longer shivering beside a prehistoric stream or hiding from strange footsteps. You're wrapped in safety, suspended between then and now, with just enough distance to watch it all like a dream fading at dawn. Let the tension melt from your shoulders. Let your heartbeat soften, your thoughts untangle. The Stone Age has retreated into the mist. You made it through against all odds. You faced beasts, braved cold nights, deciphered ancient silences. And now you rest, not on a dirt mat under a starlit canopy, but here in your own time, where you're warm and whole and home. Let sleep take you gently, like a lullaby carried by smoke across a quiet forest. You've earned it. Good night. End of script. Sweet dreams.